Hello everybody. Welcome at the session on tooling, part 2 in the series we are having. And I start here with a bit of a statement about a discussion I have had so often talking about tooling, where people in companies tell me, we have our machining experts and all of them, they have their selection of best tooling options. They prefer that face milling cutter, or they prefer that drill or whatever to do that application. And then if I feel that in a company every machining expert has that freedom to work with his or her preferred tooling, for me that's a signal. That's kind of and I hope I don't offend people too much, but that is a company with no tooling strategy. Because if you are in a situation where you have a lot of different options, tooling options to do certain things, and most people think, yeah, but our technicians need that freedom because then we can create excellence, then we can have our production excellence or whatever we call it in the company. Well, you could be surprised when having too many options, then you have kind of, how should I say, you have selection stress. You have so much options, you don't know what to choose. With other words, you have chaos. And that is the session of today. That is that I want people to be aware of, and I strongly am going to try to do that the first job in any machining company, when it's about tooling, the first job is a management job, because every company deserves to have a company tooling strategy. And deciding that strategy, that's management. And if that is not done, and if management fails to define that tooling strategy, that creates a lot of problems. And it's not technical problems, it's decision problems. And I know tooling, the general picture of tooling is, I heard that 1,000,000,000 times by means of speaking, yeah, tooling is a consumable. Come on, what are we talking about? We are talking about something where we need a lot of them, but the unit cost, the unit price is rather low, modest. So typical consumable. That's what people tell. Oh, it's consumable. So it's technical, it's operational. We can delegate all these things to the purchasing department, or engineering can take care of, or some people even say, yeah, we trust our suppliers to make selections for us. Because yeah, it's a consumable. In reality, how tooling performs in a machining company is largely shaped by decisions which are taken by management. And I do not underestimate here the importance of having a correct carbide grade or cutting geometry or whatsoever. But before all of that, before we start talking about all those details, we need an overall strategy on how we handle tooling. Before you open a catalog to find a tool, you need a definition of what a good tool is. If you don't have that definition of what a good tool is in your company, but every tool in the company is good, huh? Every tool in the catalog, I mean, is good. And in this session, I want to look at tooling from a leadership perspective. From a perspective that we need a strategy, we need an organization, we need a definition of KPIs to really make sure that tooling really contributes to the company KPIs, whatever they are. That's not the subject here. What is a good KPI? What is not a good KPI? Some companies chase for costs, profits. Others are after productivity. Others are after sustainability. Whatever. I'm not here to judge what is a good or a bad objective for a company or strategy, but tooling has to support it. and we have to make sure of that. As always, I'm not alone here. I'm together with my two colleagues, or I perhaps even dare to call them friends, that make all of this from a technological perspective possible. Because without their effort here, their work, I would not be standing here talking to you. It's a series, 5 sessions we have on tooling. And the first session we talked about, I tried to convince you that tooling is important. It's more than just a consumable. It's one of those elements in your production, when handled well, that can mean so much for your business, for your company. But tooling is working together. In tooling, management needs to be involved, engineering is involved, operations are involved. And today's session is about the first step, which is a management step. It's about taking basic strategic decisions about tooling in such a way that it supports fully and wholly the company strategy, the company vision, or whatever you want to call it, and defining a good, a correct, a best tooling policy for the company. And this is not very generic. It's not a good tooling policy. It's a good tooling policy for the company. Well, that is a strategic decision that needs to be initiated, that starts at company management level. And that is what it's all about. And something I also had often in all my discussions with companies, and is that what is supposed and what is reality. And I don't know whoever considers himself in management listening to this presentation or watching this presentation. The first message I have for you is whatever, but first check the reality in your company. Because a lot of management people, they often say, yeah, but tooling, I have experts in the organization, and those people know what is important, and it's all well translated, and we have our tooling under control. It's okay. And then if you go to the workshop, you see this situation. You see the situation in what I said with the first slide. Every expert in the company, being an engineering, programming, operators, tool grip, whatever, they all have their own fixed ideas about what is good. And if you have that, you end up with a big chaos. So whatever in management, you are sitting and you are listening now here and you say, okay, is this for me? If you think this is the situation in your company, check to make sure that this is not the situation in your company. I'm addressing with this presentation mainly people, when they go out, they see this, I would say. Because this is an illustration of an improvement or of a situation where big improvements are possible. Now, I talk about management, and if we look to a machining company, if I look to every business or every company, what are the responsibilities for management in a company? I put it here under the form of questions. One could say, the major responsibility for management is, of course, the company's overall performance. How do we do as a company? And in a question form is, what can we do to improve the overall company performance? How do we measure it? With other words, what are the KPIs? We talk about business success, okay. Company success, okay. But what do you mean? How do you measure it? Is it in money? Is it in time? Is it in quality? Is it in... I don't know. What are the KPIs that you work with? In every production company, in a machining company, if you really look down into it, a machining company makes its money with finished workpieces. And finished workpieces, where are the workpieces physically made? That's in the workshop, in production. And a big important question for management is, do we use our production capacity, what we have as capacity available in the company, in the best possible way? And are there options? Do we see possibilities to create extra capacity without having to expand or spend money on more machinery or whatever? With other words, are we using what is available in the best possible way? At a previous presentation in this series, we talked about machine utilization. I'm referring here to that. If you look to the machines you have, how are they utilized? Are they actually running and producing correct workpieces or not? Do you use the correct technology? Because that's a very important one, because technology, production technology is changing so fast that is a constant question you have to ask. Are you on track? Are you using what is the best for your company? Or are you running behind? Or are you an early adopter and perhaps too early adopting to new things? Are you at the correct level? Do your people have all the necessary knowledge, skills, mindset to work in the situation? Because, yeah, bringing in new machines, if that is what you decide, bringing in new tooling, if that is what you decide, whatever, yeah, new means different way of working. And yeah, each time you consider to bring in something new, you at the same time, you have to think about, will my people be able to handle the equipment, the tooling, the machinery? Or do they need extra help? With other words, management is responsible for the company as a whole, how it performs. Machining is a little part of that. And in that machining, we need tools, which is an even smaller part. Now, too often, my experience, people select a tool. That tool decides how the machining process will go. And how the machining process goes decides on the success of the company. And I think that's wrong. I think management has to decide how the company should function, what are the targets, the objective, or whatever. In that fits machining. Management has to decide how machining has to contribute to that overall result. And in that machining, management has also to decide how tooling fits in. So instead of tooling decides machining, machining decides company success, it should be company success decides what we can expect from machining, and to achieve that, we need that type of tooling. It's the way around of what we see often. And if I make it a little bit more specific, okay, management has to decide the general things about tooling. What do we mean with that? Well, I mean with that the company KPIs needs to be translated into tooling KPIs, kind of. And that's a management job. If a company decides we go for productivity, fine for me. then the company also has to make a general picture about how should tooling contribute to that productivity. And yeah, that are then decisions we as a company, do we prefer insert system or solid carbide tools? Do we prefer as much as possible standard tooling or custom made tooling? Do we think in terms of short-term cost savings or life cycle cost savings? All of those things needs to be, before we talk about carbide grades, all these general things in the picture of company success, machining contribution to that, tooling contribution to the machining contribution, all these things needs to be decided upfront. It's also management task to allocate budgets on that, decide on investments on that, make select, it starts with selection, and negotiate with strategic partners and key suppliers. And it's management task to decide, based on all the previous stuff now, have our people the needed knowledge, skills, mindset? Because with machining people, mindset is an ultimate important thing. And I come back to that within a couple of minutes. And if they do not have the correct thing, what do we plan for training them, educating them, motivating them to play their role in the bigger picture? And a bit, I want to involve here the financial officer, the financial manager. I know tooling people, they most of the time they like to walk around that person because finance, tooling is a technical stuff, keep finance out. I think we have to involve the financial side here because we need a very important mindset here, a management mindset, and that is, as management, the CFO included, do you consider tooling as an expense linked to consumables, or do you consider tooling as an asset to your production system to reach the targets you have with your production system? It's a basic, it's not a question, it's not a statement, it's a mindset. With other words, do you go for purchasing savings, procurement savings, or do you go for operational efficiency? You can't have, you should try to have the best possible balance by means of speaking, but it's about balancing, not directly prioritizing. Because if you are smart in your tooling policies, the balance sheet will be impacted by that. And I'm going to come back to that statement. Now, if you have, perhaps if you want to hear it a little bit more concrete, yeah, okay, we talk about company KPIs. In machining, and I think in every production company, you have 5 families. Some companies goes for productivity. Productivity in mass production means number of workpieces per day or per hour. In small batch production, it means delivery time. How fast can you deliver? Productivity. How much output do you create per time unit? Kind of. That is productivity, that big family. Another big family is economy. That's the people focusing on the costs and on cost efficiency, profit, market pricing, that type of stuff. It's another approach. I don't say this is wrong, the first is right, or vice versa. It's up to management to decide what the company is after. It can be about delivered quality, total quality. Workpiece quality, but also quality on other issues. Do you deliver in the promised time, at the promised cost? With other words, a company that keeps its promises is part of total quality. A fourth big family is companies that go for strategic flexibility, versatility. We are the company that can deliver whatever you need fast. That is this type of strategy. And fifth, a bit aside, is sustainability and circularity. Now, that sustainability, circularity, a bit aside, is the reason that it's a bit aside is that it came a bit later than all the others. The four first families we strive for in machining since 100 years. The sustainability, circularity, spoken out loud is rather recently, so it's still a bit on the side. And I think that's wrong. I think circularity, sustainability should be integrated in the others. Because you can go for productivity. But the way you reach your productivity, or you could go for economy, but the way you reach your economy, or for your quality, and the way you reach for your quality, well, how you do it, for me, that's integrated sustainability and circularity. So it's not something on the side. But again, there is a role for management to make that sure, or to make sure that everybody in the company is fully in line with this picture. That it's not, come on, it's not separate. No, it's integrated. There's a big task for that, believe me, because people in the workshop have their own personal ideas about these things. People sometimes say, yeah, variability, flexibility, especially people who had their training and education in mass industry, they hate the word variability, flexibility, because that destroys their whole system. Other companies could embrace variability and flexibility as their strategic driver. A company can on purpose decide, we as an organization are capable of handling in an efficient way variability and flexibility. You as a customer, you can ask me in the morning this and in the afternoon something else. We manage, we deliver. And how does that affect tooling? Well, that affects tooling, for instance. One basic choice you will have to make when it's about tooling is, do you go for modular tooling or solid tooling? And that decision, solid or modular, is not necessarily wise a technical decision. It's more a decision on how do you want your tooling to support your company target. And if your company target is variability and you want to deliver on promise on that, you will need tooling that is very fast, how to say, rebuildable for a new task. You need modular tooling. And of course, the technicians will say, yeah, but modular tooling, oh, solid is much better. And it could be from a technical perspective, but from a company perspective, if you as a company decide to go for variability as your strategic driver, modular tooling is the best choice. That's what I call a strategic decision then. And here it's very important that you have all your people on board. So my thoughts about whatever you decide, make sure that education, training, motivation is there. Yeah, trust me, you have the decision for modular tooling is simple. Have all your people on board to support that decision, that's another story. Sustainability, circularity. If I talk with people, if I say, you as a company, circularity, sustainability, they say, yeah. We do that. We do tool recycling, we do tool regrinding, we recover our ships, we recover our rest material. We even have a very sophisticated system to recover the heat which is generated during machining. And all of that is very nice. But it also means a little bit like what I try with the illustration to show here, circularity, how good you are about all these things is still something outside of the system. where I'm a firm believer that we have to move it in the system. Circularity and sustainability is not something different. And if you make sure as a company that you are in compliance with what your customers demand for, whatever we talk about part quality or delivery or price, you deliver first time good what your customer asks for, wants from you. Here you have the key driver for sustainability and circularity in machining. Because the worst enemy of those two in machining is wasted work pieces. You spend so much time and money and efforts and energy and material in producing a workpiece which is no good. If you make sure the workpiece is good, there you have your circularity. And all the other stuff, the tool recycling and so on, is very interesting. But the red part here is the core. Start with that. And make sure your tooling contributes to this. Because whatever your driver is, quality or delivery or whatever, if you make sure you are better than the competition in it, that's where you reach your production excellence. In a very simple way defined. Other things that management needs to decide is strategic supply chains. Questions needs to be asked whatever choice you make. How dependent are you on the supply chain? And I think with everything going on in the world the last months or years, everybody is aware of that supply chains are fragile. Have you built that fragility into your selections, suppliers and tool obsolescence? Developments in tooling goes fast, which is good, but that means at the same time that existing tooling is disappearing also fast. How fragile is your tooling in respect of if a supplier decides to cancel a product line, that you are going to be affected by that without having an alternative? Safety and insurance, that's your responsibility, I think. People like to put responsibilities in other places, but that you are safe with your supply chain and with your tooler connection, supplier connection, and so on. That's the responsibility from the company. Always be careful with cheap, because I always say cheap comes with a cost. Somewhere that cheap is going to give you something that perhaps is not what you were after from the beginning. Be careful with that, and whatever, make sure you have a plan B. It's good to put all your eggs in the same basket, but make sure below that basket that you have a net to carry if something happens with the basket. Have a plan B. If we talk about procurement pitfalls, now that we are talking about suppliers, focusing only on price is a very dangerous situation, especially when you ignore delivery times or promises made on delivery time. If you ask a supplier, can you deliver? Of course we can deliver. You can always deliver, and always tomorrow. But how real is that? Make sure that you take that in. And how consistent is the quality? Because you should not be after a one-time situation, but you should be after a continuous situation that you receive what you agreed upon. Be careful by ignoring or neglecting feedback you have from engineering or from operations, because those people can give you feedback about the reality. They are in the reality every day. Make sure that what they say in the UK, don't be centwise and pound foolish. Short-term savings is nice, but if that leads to long-term losses, it's perhaps not the best strategy. And also here, make sure you have a plan B. If a supplier doesn't keep his promises, yeah, but he promised. Yeah, but if he doesn't, what is your plan B? A very important thing, and I think this, if I have to make a ranking, this is perhaps the first place. The task of management is to decide suppliers what type of relation they want to have with certain suppliers. Is it a vendor relation, transactional? I buy, I pay, end of story. I buy, you deliver, I pay, that type of thing, like on the market? Or are you looking for a partner that gives you the tooling but also shares some knowledge and gives training if training is needed for your people, that try to align with your needs more than just I need a tool? Or is it a strategic ally you are after? Somebody with whom you can go beyond the cutting edge. And this is not, again, a presentation where I want to put things side by side, advantages, disadvantages. I just want to bring under your attention that as management, and we are not talking here, not yet, about carbide grades and cutting geometries or whatever. In general, company to company, business to business, what type of relation do you want? What type of relation is a supplier able to give you? Because of course every supplier wants to be a strategic ally to you, because that has serious advantages for a supplier. But is the supplier capable of delivering his part of the bargain also, and go indeed beyond the cutting edge with you? Knowledge transfer is a major thing in this type of discussions. Knowledge transfer in two directions. That the supplier transfers knowledge to you about how his product should be used and can contribute to your targets, but also knowledge from your side to the supplier. So he is capable of giving best possible advice when asked for. And what with some suppliers, you should go for long-term value creation. But it's a question about, are you willing to, and is the supplier capable of delivering? And this is management negotiation. I'm really convinced of that. Don't leave this to the engineering department. Nothing wrong with the engineering department, but I think this is a management task. Questions to be asked in that respect is, do we go for cheapest or best? How resilient is the supply chain? In our company, and if not, can a supplier help us with that? Are we tracking the total life cycle cost, not just the purchasing cost, but also the utilization cost, the recovering cost, and so on? And in that respect, procurement or purchasing should make sure they have feedback. They should listen to feedback coming in from engineering or from operations. They should use that feedback, if it's good feedback, and that is, I'm going to define that later, what is good feedback, but they should use that feedback for better selection procedures for suppliers, for better sourcing, for helping them to negotiate certain things. And do we constantly check if extra education is needed for? If you decide to go for a new tooling system, nice, but will your people be capable of handling the new tooling in the best possible way? And if you have doubts about that, or will your people understand why the new tooling comes in? And if you have doubts about that, don't wait until accidents happen. Proactively make sure the new thing comes in with all the needed guidance and help and education. Tooling in that respect, and for management, this is perhaps the first, perhaps the only question to ask. How do you consider tooling, as a cost or as an asset? Tooling may look like a consumable, but for sure it's not. It's an operational asset. But if you misunderstand this, that leads to so many problems in your company. And that's why I had as a subtitle for this session that before an engineer opens a catalog, already a lot of problems could be created. Because what you see here on the slide is not handled in the correct way. Tooling stands for the famous 3% of the total machining cost. That we know since 50 years. You hear it all over the place, and mostly it's used if people are having problems with the cost of tooling. They say, yeah, but it's only 3%. Come on, come on. But those 3% are influencing everything else that represent the 97 other percentages of the total cost. If you select cheap tooling that breaks constantly, that means that you are going to lose a lot of work pieces, and that means that your machines are going to stand still a lot of time. So your machine utilization goes down, and that is going to drive your other 97% very much upwards. So be careful next time somebody puts on the table the 3% there. That's purchasing cost. That's not utilization cost. And that's why I say tooling price is the wrong financial question. Because the cost of an insert is €10, come on. And I want €9 because I want to save some money. Okay. And then what? We have to go from purchasing logic to value logic. And that's why in previous sessions I talked to you about CPR and CPRR. The importance of stability, the importance of reducing risks. And stability and risk avoidance in machining relates to only one element, the tooling. 90% of all things that are jeopardizing stability and increasing risk during machining is related to the tooling you use. And in that respect, repeatability, having whatever quality but in a repeatable manner, always in the long run will beat short-term savings. So you have to think in total life cycle cost instead of unit. And of course, the purchasing cost is a very simple figure, so much. And it's an important consideration. I don't say you have to throw money away. I really not. But the real savings comes from the overall tool performance once you start using it after you purchased it. And management must decide long-term what value is and make sure that people see that value in total life cycle thinking, not just buying the tool, but from the beginning, selecting a tool, buying a tool, stocking a tool, utilizing a tool, recovering a tool, recycling a tool, and the whole cycle. Management, however, has not to calculate. Management has to define. Calculation of all those things is later for engineering. But engineering can only calculate and optimize if they know what management wants from a global company perspective. So what should management do? Management, first of all, has to define what good is. What is, from a company perspective, good? What is company success? What is business success? How can machining as one little part in that big picture contribute to that? And how can tooling contribute to the machining process so the machining process does what it has to do to fit in the big picture? And that, no calculations, no details, but that big thing needs to be decided by management. And if it's not, you have chaos, because then everybody will chase his or her own objectives. Once you have a big picture, stop giving conflicting signals. Management going to purchasing saying, reduce the costs. Going to production say, increase productivity. You create a big conflict in your company because purchasing is going to chase for the cheapest possible supplier, while production wants to have the best performing tool available on the market. You feel me coming, the conflict? Purchasing should support production goals. But production should avoid to overdo things, because in production there is a tendency to try to do better than what is needed. And that is also throwing away money. And your tooling policy must reflect that total picture so that purchasing can contribute its part and production will contribute his part to the total picture. Management must create a feedback loop from management to engineering to work floor, shop floor, and from shop floor back to engineering, back to management. And the most important thing, perhaps, when you create the 5th session in this series, we are going to talk about feedback loops. Feedback, when received, when somebody gives you feedback, you have to learn to accept it without blaming the bringer. I take a decision, it goes in reality, and the workshop comes back to me and tells me your decision is not working, and often I will feel blamed, accused. You have to learn to accept feedback without having that feeling. If the feedback is honest, if the feedback is real, accept it. Reconsider, and you give your feedback, but give it without accusing. Because that often is also the case. If from top to bottom, feedback comes often with accusing. Next time, do better, huh? Yeah, but who says that the first time the operator did bad? So he must do better. Blame and accusation. 2 very important words when we talk about feedbacks. And feedback can be about the process, can be about the tools, can be about stress for people because they are firefighting all the time. And also try to find the real causes for why people give feedback. Is it the lack of knowledge, a lack of skills? Is it frustration, stress, because the mindset of people is not in line with what management is thinking about? Enable your technicians instead of constraining them. I hear it so often from technicians. They say, I would like, but I'm not allowed. Management creates boundaries, and within the boundaries, freedom should be given to the technicians. And the priority should be very clear. Why do we do what we do, and what should we do to achieve that? How people do that, that's freedom you'll have to leave to your experts. If you believe in your experts, give them the freedom to decide on the how they achieve your targets. They know most probably much better than you because they are in daily reality. And if you feel there are some issues there and people are asking for education, give them education. Give them training. Give them mentorship. And if you have a correct relation with your suppliers, involve your suppliers in all of this. If they are partners, consider them as partners. And if you do kind of all of this, it seems easy, but believe me, it's not always so easy. That means you have a strategy. And there, as management, you have to stop. You decided the why we want things, and you decided what we want to do, and how. That's now up to engineering. That's part 3 in the series. That's the subject for the next session. So, in management, there is a blind spot. Management most of the time knows everything about financial stuff. But what management does not always fully understand, that is the importance of tooling as a value creator, a value multiplicator, a risk reducer, a stability enabler, whatever, and much more than just a consumable. We all think it is, come on, an insert €10 or 3% of. It's a blind spot, and everybody listening in here, if you are in management, be honest, do you have that blind spot? And if you have it, you should be you should look for some education in this, that you start to see. And it's not about the calculations. For that you have your engineering experts, don't worry. But first, the big picture, that you fully understand the role tooling could play in your company policy. Management should consider tools as strategic levers for your production, and your policies around tooling should shape your competitiveness, are your biggest help to achieve excellence. The details, the numbers, that's up to engineering, but engineering can only do its job when you first decided and told them and motivated them about what is valuable for the company. If you don't have that, you are in for chaos. Go to the workshop, open the cabinets, look to the tools they have, talk to your operators if they are in constant urgency, constantly now problem here, problem there, very busy. That signals that some major decisions up front has not yet been taken or not well communicated. A copy of this presentation is available, of course. I always think I should say that in the beginning to avoid that people are writing like crazy. If you want a copy, just let me know and we send you a copy. A book I would like to advise, we have quite a large library of technical literature, but a book I would like to advise you in this respect to read is a book about what we call QRM. Quick response manufacturing, because a lot of principles there we can apply one-to-one on a tooling situation. If you want to learn more in this book, it's not about formulas, it's not about calculating. That's for engineering. It's on management level. That's my message for today. Let's see if there are some questions here. A lot of questions. Yeah, okay, but we have some time. I have a question here. Yeah, I'm reading the questions. Your reasoning makes sense for structured environments, but how do we apply this when every job is different? And that's a challenge. But if you take the challenge, it's a big reward. A very big reward. Because if you are in situations where everything is structured, very typical mass production, in mass production, people have all the time of the world to upfront actual production to figure out everything. And you have large engineering departments and prototyping and everything you want to figure out the best possible. And once you have that, you are running it for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years. If you are in a situation where every job is different, small batch situations, the challenge there is that every job is different. And if you go for the technical expert approach, I want for every job the best performing tool available, you are in for total chaos. And a lot of loss of time and money and efforts. Even more than in mass production, small batch demands for a strong management taking firm decisions about overall policies on how do we select use our tooling. So it's applicable, it's a challenge, it's a fight, but if you manage it in small batch production, you could make variability and flexibility your driver, your company drive. You could be the company saying, dear Mr. Customer, call me in the morning, I deliver in the afternoon. Which is nowadays a very strong argument for companies. So how do we apply? That's a challenge. It's work. It will mean fight, but it mean big gainings also in the end. Next question. We are under constant pressure to reduce tooling costs. Yeah, aren't we all? How do we convince management that cheaper tools are sometimes the more expensive option? In my conclusions, you remember the first slide I showed you, the blind spot of management? Seeing your question, I have a feeling that you work in a company where management has that blind spot. They don't see the value of tooling. They see the 3%ing. And they want to even reduce that to lower figures. So how do we convince management? Yeah, there is a big task for engineering and for operations here to train management, to educate management, to mentor management. Very strange what I say now. The machine operator is going to train management, but basically that's what it is. You will have to convince them with firm feedback, honest feedback, objective feedback, that they have to broaden their view on what tooling is. And for management, it's feedback. That should be accepted when given with good intentions without blame. Don't feel blamed. It's just people motivated to make the company a success. How do you do it? Yeah, educate and train management. What kind of data do we need to make better tooling decisions at management level? All the data you need can come from inside. You have to sit down with engineering, you have to sit back with operations, and you have to ask their observations from how it goes today with suppliers, with people, with the actual tools, the carbide grades, the whatever, the personal help, the delivery reliability, all of that, you have it in your company. You have to invite your people to share it with you. And there, once you have that, you have the basis on which you can start thinking and create a company policy when it's about tooling. And once you have that, you have to step in as management and take your job seriously. You do the main negotiations with the suppliers you consider where you want to have a relation on a higher level. You need to take some basic discussions and decisions about basic tooling types. Indexable solid carbide, solid modular, capability of suppliers in sharing knowledge and expertise with you. How open are they, or are they not? How risky is it to work with? All of that. So the data comes from your organization. Invite your people to share the data in an honest, open, transparent manner, without blaming or accusation. An open discussion. Based on that, find where your company KPIs are endangered by what you have. And that's where you have to correct and come to a better, or to, if not existing, a general policy about tools. Yeah, one last question, because I see the time is Our tooling choices are limited by what's in our ERP system. How do we deal with that? I don't know who asked the question, but my guess is the job of that person is he's in engineering or in operations, because and most probably, it's one of these people who most probably is truly an expert and believes so much in its technical expertise that for every new application he can figure out the ideal tool. It's the person who wants for every new work piece a new set of tooling, because this and that and that, and if there is standardized tooling in the ERP system, such a person considers that as a limitation. He feels limited, and if later on it doesn't work, he will say, yeah, I had to work with what is available, and I told you it's not the best possible. That's one thing. On the other hand, also we have to dare to ask critical questions about what is in the ERP system. Who decided what is in the ERP system? Is that purchasing? Or is that perhaps the supplier? I have seen stranger situations. Because what is in the ERP system, what is standardized for the company, should of course reflect also the company KPIs. And perhaps the expert is right here, that when he starts chasing the company targets, what he finds in the ERP system is not helping. So I'm not blaming anybody, I'm accusing everybody here. Is what is in the ERP system in line with what is needed to be successful in going after company success, business success? And is the expert well informed and motivated? Let's suppose now what is in the ERP system is good, that is what he needs to fulfill, perhaps not his technical dreams, but the company targets. Yeah, I have to see there's quite a lot more questions. I promise after this session, whatever questions are in the comments, I take the time to send answers. If there are more questions, of course, you can always contact us and we can see what and how we can help you. As I said, I have had with management and with engineering and with operations thousands of discussions on this subject. And honestly, think about it, but the first step about tooling is a management step. Management is responsible for strategy, and that should not be delegated, and for sure never outsourced. Management should define what is economy in the company, what is meant by sustainability. Management has to define the relation with certain suppliers. Is it a vendor relation? Is it a partner relation? Is it a key partner? That's up to management to decide what to go for. Management decides how much influence a supplier can have in the company or not. Management should avoid details, because in machining, people are often so obsessed by details. I once had a discussion very fast with a manager of a company, and the guy originally was a machining operator. And he started his own company, blah, 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 and we always ended up in detailed discussions about the thickness of coatings on new carbide grades. And then I think, you are manager of a, in the meantime, successful company, and we are It's fun because I'm a technician also. I like that, but it's a kind of a waste of time for a manager to discuss if the thickness of a coating should be 8 micron or 7 micron. So that's not management. You have engineering for that. But management is mainly responsible for reducing complexity, for rationalized tooling choices, for standardize there where appropriate certain tools. The first step is establish in their own mind and in the mind of all their people how they see tooling. Is it a cost factor or is it a strategic production lever? And that's up to you. Obviously, you know my opinion now, but it's up to you to decide for yourself. And once you decided that, it's up to management to based on that, come up with clear priorities, KPIs, align purchasing, engineering, and production. Don't give conflicting signals. Focus or move the focus away from the unit price of an insert, which is very low. Focus on process value and make sure your people are with you. They have the mindset to follow you in that. And create boundaries in which people can maneuver. And once the boundaries are set, give them freedom within the boundaries to do a good job. Once you did all of that, the next step is up to engineering. They have to translate all of this now into numbers, details, choices, whatever, to make sure that you have a stable, effective, efficient machining process contributing fully to the overall company targets. You have to understand that tooling strategy decisions are management decisions. That's what I try to make you understand with this presentation. And that comes before the technical details. If you are with me, based on that, define clear policies, priorities, decisions, whatever. Not the details. The details, you have to dare to hand over to engineering. They have to handle the details from now on. But they need to know the strategy and they need to know the boundaries. From there on, it's up to them. And what they then are supposed to do, that's what we are going to talk about at the next session. End of May, we have the third session in the series where we are going to talk about how engineering can transform management strategy into operational excellence in the workshop. Engineering is the in-between, is the transformation department, one could say. I'm looking forward to see you there and to continue our journey in this tooling world. I hope this one was an interesting session. Again, if you have questions, put them in the comments, send an email. If you want a copy of this presentation or whatever more information on the literature available, just let us know. We try to help you as much as possible. I hope now management understands that basic tooling policies, decisions belong to them. And they should not delegate it anymore to engineering or to operations.